Hey everybody, it's Skylar, and I'm back again with another pregnancy update video. This video is really not that late. I actually had recorded this video already, but somehow it got deleted. I think my phone like died mid-video or something. But I did not do a 35-week update. Go back and watch the past videos and read the little captions on the first part of the video to see why I did not do a 35-week update. This is going to be basically like the 35/36 week update. Today's Tuesday, the 10th of November. I'm currently 37 weeks and 1 day pregnant with our third child. We have a girl and a boy, and this is our third child, which she will be a girl. We also did a well, I also announced the name on Instagram. I can link the post in the description box or my Instagram handle below. Hopefully I will remember to do that when I'm editing this video if you want to see what her name is. And a couple of people have asked me if I have a social media, and I'll try to do that handle below for that reason also. I have my notes here. So what I'm going to do is mainly just talk about the symptoms that I experienced between 35 and during the 36th week of pregnancy. It has been a wild ride these past few weeks. I can definitely tell that this is my third child. I'm just aching all over, just feeling really crappy. I remember in my last two pregnancies I felt really bad toward the end. Like the last month or so, I just was so tired, so swollen, so achy, so much pain, so many Braxton Hicks, was so sick of them by the time that I was ready to deliver. And just a lot has happened. So definitely stay tuned till the end, and I'll kind of tell you, like, I had like a little scare happen during the 36th week. I think it was like 36 weeks 4 or 5 days or something like that. No, I wasn't. No, I was pretty early 36 weeks because this didn't happen a few days ago. This happened like last week sometime. There's a bird on my window. Like, that's so weird. I think it might be a woodpecker. Anyway, distracted. Sorry. So I'm gonna go ahead and start out with like some of the stuff that's not as big of a deal. So 35/36 weeks pregnancy update. Since about 30 or so weeks, I've had, well, maybe 34. I'm not really 100% sure. You'll have to go back and look at the videos, but sometime during the early 30 week mark, I started having these contractions that were kind of, well, they were regular, but they always tapered off whenever I would like drink a bunch of water or like sit down and stuff. And most of the time they would happen after I had gotten off of work, and I would come home and like sit down, and they would continue for like an hour or an hour and a half. And they would be like every 7 minutes, and they get closer and be 5 minutes, and then be 3 minutes, and then be 2 minutes, and they would get more intense and more intense and more intense, and my back would hurt. And like regular real labor contractions, they would start in my back and like really crampy, and then come to the front and contract in my uterus. I really need my water over here, but I think I might knock over my camera. We'll see what happens. Okay, basically a turtle. I cannot get up for any reason whatsoever. If I sit down, I have to like get help getting up, or if I lay down or whatever. Anyway, so it's probably going to start raining, and you're probably going to hear that. Sorry. These contractions are really scary. I think I mentioned this in one of my last couple of videos. I kept thinking, and I think this was around like 34 weeks, I kept thinking, you know, like these are regular and they get closer together and they get more intense, and yes, they do go away, so like it's not going to be like true I'm in labor, I have to go to the hospital, I'm having this baby tonight kind of thing, because they stopped, but they were regular, and they say that Braxton Hicks are normally not regular, they're normally irregular, and they also say that they normally do not hurt, but these actually were getting to be painful. Now, they weren't as painful as when like my water was broken in the hospital and induced with my other children without an epidural just yet. Those were the most painful, and these are not as painful as those, of course, but they were starting to get pretty painful compared to like actual just obvious Braxton Hicks, just only Braxton Hicks, where your stomach just tightens and it's like, oh, this feels weird, or this is kind of uncomfortable. You know, these were actually painful. So during the 34th week, I had gone to the doctor and I told him about those, and he's like, well, if you go into labor now, I probably wouldn't stop you. And I'm like, isn't this really too early? You know, like I kind of started to freak out, so I was like watching for like symptoms and stuff. And so one of the things that I wanted to point out, and this is why I started with this story, is I think it was between 34 and 35 weeks, or maybe during the early 35th week, I actually lost part of my mucus plug, which it can like regenerate sort of. Which this is disgusting. If you don't know what a mucus plug is, definitely Google it, like what it looks like, which is so gross. But like TMI, don't let your children listen to this if you don't let your children listen to things about the reproductive organs. But basically it's like this mucus like dischargey thing that it basically acts as like a quirk in the cervix, and when the cervix starts to open up, then the mucus plug starts to fall out, and it can be like up in there until labor starts, or it can fall out kind of early if your cervix starts to open at all, and it can fall out in pieces or as a whole. They say that I want to say it's like 2 tablespoons if it's the whole thing, and if it's not, then it's not the whole thing. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's something that I had read. Anyway, so a part of mine had dislodged and come out. Oh, I feel like I have to sneeze. It came out like between the 34th and 35th or early 35th week. So I was like, oh my gosh. Of course, that doesn't mean that labor is right around the corner. It just means that my cervix has done something to change. Like it has started effacing or had started opening up. So I was like, okay, well, I must be starting to dilate or something. So I started to get kind of paranoid. Anxiety was really high. And it has basically just gotten higher and higher and higher. I'm still taking the very low dosage of the like Prozac. It's actually fluoxetine, which is an off-brand Prozac from the pharmacy, and it's only like 10 milligrams a day, and I don't know if it actually helps or not, but I'm just feeling like this overwhelming sense of urgency, like something's about to happen. I feel like I need to be like cleaning, and like nesting and things like that. And then all of a sudden I just overwhelm myself and get really, really exhausted from the things that I have tried to do, and I like overdo it, and then so I have to just like sit and do nothing, and then by that time I'm like, okay, well, I just need some rest, I'm just really tired, let's just like sleep until this baby gets here, basically. So I just kind of go back and forth between I have to clean and I have to rest. So the sense of urgency and anxiety has increased since that happened with the mucus plug, because it makes me feel like she's coming like any day, which of course I'm 37 weeks now, so I've made it like 2.5 weeks past that time. But the other day during the 36th week, more of that mucus plug did come out. It wasn't like a whole ton of it each time. I would assume that there's probably just a little bit left in there, if anything. But it's just kind of, it's exciting, but it's kind of scary at the same time because it means that my cervix is doing something. So, before I go into the actual results of what my cervix has been doing, because I did get a cervical check at the 36-week appointment. My doctor starts doing cervical checks once a week, 36, 37, 38, and 39 weeks, and then I won't go any farther past the 39 week. So I actually won't get a cervical check during the 39th week. My last cervical check and last appointment will be during the 38th week. My last appointment's next week. Oh my gosh. And then that Monday after will be the 39th week. That day I'll turn 39 weeks and we'll be induced if we don't go to labor before then. So that's super weird. Anyway, more symptoms and stuff before I get into like what has happened and like the scare that I had, that kind of like, I had an early cervical check because of the scare, and then 2 days later I had another cervical check at the actual doctor, which was protocol for 36 weeks. So more symptoms first. Because of the anxiety and stuff, I've just been really struggling as a parent. I've been struggling balancing everything. I'm still working, same schedule, just when I go in, I don't stay as long. I tell everyone, I'm like, okay, well, I gotta go home soon. And most of the time, unless we're like super busy, they're pretty good about letting me go home before most other people. Thank goodness. I'm very fortunate to work somewhere where people actually care about me and like what's going on with me. So that's really good. I have had some serious lightning crotch. And if you don't know what lightning crotch is, it's basically the baby hitting your cervix, especially if it's head down and ready to come out. And like oftentimes she will push her feet up here, and then her head will just push down on my cervix, and it's very painful. It's like a jolt of energy. I think that's why they call it lightning crotch. It's like lightning all of a sudden. It's just really sharp shooting pain all of a sudden, and it's just very painful, especially whenever I stand up or I've been up for a while. I just feel like I have a cold. I'm sorry. But when I stand up or have been up for a while, not only do I experience that, but I also experience extreme pressure, and just, it feels like there's a water balloon in there that's just being squeezed and just about to pop, which that's pretty much what it is like a water balloon that's being squeezed and about to pop. But my water's never broken on its own. I've always had to have my water broken in the hospital because I was induced both other times with both other children. So don't know if it would break or not, but I've had a lot of back, hip, and like upper thigh pain, probably just because of me being on my birthing ball and just kind of bouncing around, rolling around, trying to get, you know, everything, you know, aligned and the baby down further so that my cervix does dilate and efface as much as it can on its own. Whether I go into labor without being induced or not, it would still help by the time that we reached our induction date and got into the hospital, and the labor would be shorter and probably just a lot less of a waiting game than it would be if I didn't do any of that, and less chance that I would end up having to have a C-section if the baby was too high. If she was lower, things would work out better, you know, less chance of having to have a C-section. I've had a lot of swelling of my hands and feet over the last week, not really in the 35th week, but in the 36th week, yes, a lot more than I had ever said in my previous videos. If I'm up for 20 minutes, I start to feel like my toes look really huge. My fingers and hands are pretty swollen. They're not as bad, like it's morning, so they're not horrible, but this is bigger than like they normally are. Just right here mainly is where they swell, and then I can tell like when I bend that they feel like enlarged, or almost feels like tingly. been trying to drink as much water as possible, been trying to decrease my sodium intake as much as possible, but it's just really hard at the end. You just swell anyway. I swear I heard a car door. I hope not. I hope my door is locked. I get really paranoid whenever I'm at home by myself. Kids are at school, husband's at work. Anyways. So, on to the story. So, it was like 4 p.m. Last Monday. So, yeah, it was last Monday. So, it was actually... Well, now I'm seeing my Ring doorbell. Hold on. Okay. That was just my dog on my Ring doorbell. That was super weird because I thought I heard a car door, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, there's motion at your doorbell. And I was like, anyway, I don't like when I'm home alone. There's a backstory on that, but I can't really say much about it right now. I've had someone bothering me, and so it's really scary. Anyways, so I kind of do remember whenever this was because I had to call into work and it was a Monday. So let me try to get this set up again like it's supposed to be. Probably not going to be able to. I don't remember how I had it set up. So it's like 4 or 3:30 on a Monday, and it was not the 9th of November. It was like it was last Monday. So whatever last Monday was, 2nd, 1st, I don't know math. I'm terrible at math. So I was sitting on the yoga ball. I was going to have to leave for work within the next little bit less than an hour, and a yoga ball, not only does it just kind of like get your body ready, get your hips ready, descend the baby lower into the birth canal, but it also relieves back pain and hip pain to an extent because it takes the pressure off of like sitting on something really hard like a couch or, you know, piece of furniture, a chair, something like that. So I was sitting on that, and I had kind of rocked forward, and it felt like there was like something coming out, almost like I peed myself, but I didn't have to go to the bathroom. I just gone to the bathroom, so it was really weird. And so I went to the bathroom, and there was like and this is TMI, so like if you don't want to hear about nasty stuff in pregnancy, then just like skip forward or something. But there was like a wet spot on my underwear, and so it wasn't like my water broke, gush, there's stuff everywhere, which you can have a low leak of your amniotic fluid, or a slow leak, and normally that's when there is a hole from the top of your amniotic sac, and then when you move around, or, you know, forward, backwards, or you stand up, or you lay down and go from laying down to standing up, then the baby's head kind of moves around, and if you're only dilated a little bit, then the baby's head can plug, like act as a cork on your cervix and not allow any of the amniotic fluid to leak. So, but whenever you move around, like little trickles can come out. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is weird. So I was like, maybe I just peed. So like changed and then sat down again. And the same thing happened a couple minutes later. And so I was like, okay, this is really freaking weird. So I laid down for a little bit, and whenever I got up, it happened again. And so I told my husband, I was like, I don't know if my water's leaking. I don't know if I just keep like having an accident, but I don't have to pee. I'm going to pee multiple times, making sure that my bladder's not full so that I don't have like, you know, leaking on my pants from my, you know, bladder, which is very common and very hard to prevent whenever you're 9 months pregnant. It's very, very normal. So we're not like gross or anything. Don't think we're gross or nothing. Like the baby's literally sitting on my bladder, and it's really hard to control. But when this would happen, I would like tense up my muscles and make sure that it wasn't pee, and it wasn't. So I was getting freaked out. Kind of freaked out, kind of excited, not gonna lie, because I really wanted to just have this baby and get it over with, but 36 weeks was kind of early. And I was only like 36, I was 36 weeks on the dot, I believe. Yeah, so that was kind of scary. So I told my husband that, and he's like, well, you probably need to call into work. So I called in just to make sure that everything, you know, that I could be at home if I needed to go to the hospital, and that I wouldn't be up walking around and like the baby's head plugging, you know, my cervix if my water was actually leaking, and then all of a sudden like me move a certain way and there'd be this huge gush all over the floor and it'd be disgusting and me have to leave work embarrassed. So I didn't want that to happen, put myself in a bad situation. So I called in, and I laid around for a little while and tried to basically wait around and see if it happened again. And I waited a few hours, and it was like, it just didn't really happen very much, and then it just eventually stopped happening. So I was like, well, this is really weird. I was having contractions, but they weren't super regular, and they weren't building in intensity. So I thought that was strange. But a lot of the time, even if women's water does break, labor doesn't immediately start, and sometimes your body doesn't really do what it's supposed to do, and your water breaks, and then your contractions don't really ever start, even after like 24 hours, and then you wind up having to be induced because of the health risk for you and the baby and infection risks. So I hoped that that wasn't going to happen to me. Like, that's the whole reason why I was panicked, is because there's kind of a certain amount of time that you need to wait until you actually have your baby, or you might have to have a C-section to avoid infection. So I did not want that to happen. Anyway, so it was about 10 o'clock. Contractions still weren't very regular. They weren't really building. So I told my husband, I was like, maybe I'm just freaking out for no reason. And I started to feel really doubtful and really upset. And he was like, well, what do you want to do? The hospital's like 50 minutes away. Like, you know, what do you think we need to do? And I'm like, gosh, I don't like this pressure on me. You know, whenever you're the one that's pregnant, it's like you are the one that has to say, okay, we need to go to the hospital, or no, I'm fine. Or, you know, if you do go to the hospital, it winds up being for no reason. It's embarrassing, and you feel like incompetent, and like you wasted everybody's time and got everybody's hopes up for no reason. So I did not want that to happen. I did not want to have to lug the entire family to the hospital if I didn't even need to. So what I did was I went ahead and went to bed and thought, okay, if I'm going to be in labor, like, surely these contractions will wake me up in the middle of the night, because you have like a increased percentage chance of going to labor at night for some reason, something to do with hormones. And so that did not happen. I woke up the next morning, got out of bed, same thing happened. Had to change my underwear. And it wasn't like enough to soak my underwear. It was just like enough to be uncomfortable and kind of feel gross. So I was like, okay, I do need to go to the hospital, because my clinic was closed that day. They're closed on Tuesdays. So I had to go to the actual labor and delivery at the hospital. So I dropped the kids off at school, went to the hospital, and this is the whole, it's a long story, but this is the whole main part. So went there, and I was like, I think my water might be leaking. I'm not really sure. It's not like a whole bunch, but it just keeps happening and keeps happening and keeps happening. And it's just super weird. And you know, I'm going to be embarrassed if it's like pee, but I keep going to the bathroom, and then it happens. You know, like, it's not like I'm going to the bathroom and then standing up and then leaking pee from me just not emptying my bladder fully. It's going to the bathroom, being done, wiping really good, standing up, wiping again to make sure it doesn't get on my underwear, because sometimes you can stand up and then like a little bit of pee still comes out, which is disgusting, but you just can't help it because you are literally 9/10 months pregnant. So don't make fun of me here, y'all. But then I'll go sit down and be down for a while and then stand back up, and then it happens again. So I was just super freaked out. So I went into triage, and they were monitoring everything, and they did the nitrazine test, which basically is like a pH test to tell, is it pee, is it amniotic fluid, is it discharge, what is it, and it's supposed to turn a certain color if it's amniotic fluid. So I didn't get to see it. She called another nurse in whenever she got the nitrazine test, and she was like, what do you think? And I was like, what are you talking about? You know, like, just kind of overhearing their conversation. The other nurse was like, yeah, it seems kind of questionable. And I'm like, okay, is it or is it not? Because I'm not a nurse, I don't know. And they were like, oh, well, let's just wait and see if anything else happens. So I'm in there for like 2 hours. And then she's like, well, just push your call light if you feel anything else. We're going to go ahead and do a cervical check. So she said, my cervical check probably lasted like 3 straight minutes from the time that she inserted her fingers into my vagina until she was done, which is a long time because she said my cervix was high and that the baby was high. And I was like, no, like, this baby has been dropped since like 31 weeks. This baby is not high. Like, maybe your definition of, you know, high, you know, when we're not in active labor, or, you know, in transition phase whenever we're about to start pushing, but my definition of high would be like she's up in my ribs, and she is not. Like, she's down there. And so I just felt like really discouraged. And then she was like, well, I can't even reach your cervix. And then she didn't say anything about like if it was dilated or not. She just kept like reaching around, and I was cramping, and I was on my back, so it was really hard because there's so much weight whenever you're on your back, and the weight's like all over your organs and your veins and things, and it's very painful to lay on your back whenever you're pregnant, especially 9 months. So she never told me if I was dilated or not. And when I went to be discharged, I asked the lady, was I dilated or not? Like, I had lost my mucus plug already. Surely I was dilated. And then she checked the computer system and said, well, she said that you were not dilated and that your cervix was high and closed. And I was like, what? So I just started crying. I just cried because I felt like all the pain and all of the contractions and everything that had happened, and how the contractions were regular, and all the cramping and everything had happened for no reason, and my body was just doing nothing. And then I was just so far away from having my baby and feeling normal and not being miserable, because it is very painful. It's very uncomfortable, and it's so miserable at the very end. And so I felt just really helpless and hopeless. And they wound up saying, it's not amniotic fluid, you're not leaking. And I was like, well, what is it then? Because it's watery. It's not pee. Like, it doesn't smell like pee. They say to do the sniff test, which is disgusting, and I know, and I hate doing it. But if you think your water is leaking, that's one of the best ways to figure out before you go to the hospital if it's amniotic fluid or if it's urine, is because urine has a distinct smell. Amniotic fluid normally smells like either nothing or it smells kind of sweet. And I did not smell urine. Like, it did not smell that way to me. Even if I, like, felt around on, like, the base of my, you know, vagina, it felt like there was watery something coming out of it, but just not enough for them to be like, oh, yeah, definitely, or we're worried about this, or let's monitor you, or let's do an ultrasound to see if your amniotic fluid levels are low. They didn't offer to do any of that because it wasn't enough for concern for them. But basically, I left feeling like an idiot. I left feeling like all the pain was for no reason. And I cried all the way home for like 50 straight minutes. And I had recorded some of the video telling you about this on the way home. And so, anyway, I had my doctor's appointment with my regular OB 2 days later. When I went there, he had done the first cervical check, which was routine. And so he said, okay, it's not that hard for me to reach your cervix. I don't know if you've come down or dilated since then, but your cervix isn't super low, but it's not super high either, and you're dilated to a 2. And so I was like, wow, I feel encouraged, because I felt like, you know, if my cervix was closed, like I said, the pain was for no reason. And how did I lose my mucus plug already if my cervix was closed? That's not even, like, I don't even think that's a thing. You lose your mucus plug because your cervix starts to efface or to open. And I'm pretty sure it's mainly when it opens that you lose your mucus plug. So I was like, surely it has to be, you know, dilated, even if it's like a 0.5 centimeter. So yeah, so we're 2 centimeters dilated. He said it's not really very thin, which I was like, okay, what do I need to do to help? Like, I don't want to have to, like, be in labor forever, whether we go into labor on our own or if we have to be induced. And I kind of just want that experience of being able to go into labor on my own, because that's never happened to me. And, you know, the sooner the better, because I'm just so miserable and I want this baby to come out. But, you know, I do want her to be safe and healthy, but sometime during the 38th week wouldn't be such a big deal. So anyway, he's like, well, just walk, or, you know, try to get as much rest as you need to, but try to stay, you know, as vertical as possible and just see if gravity helps. But nothing is really proven to work. So he just said, like, try not to stress about it, basically, which I have very much so been doing the opposite of that. I have basically just been, like, Googling like crazy ways to induce labor naturally at home, drinking red raspberry tea. I sent my husband to go get fresh pineapple from Walmart, but they were out, even though their website said that they had it, on the grocery pickup, and been bouncing on the birthing ball. I've been doing all sorts of things, and it just feels like she's gonna be in there forever. But a lot of people said that I've dropped even more than what I was before, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, so that has been the 35/36 week pregnancy update. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of this bed and kind of show you the 500-pound stomach. Might be 700 pounds by now. Definitely increased in size, and everything is so messy around here. Don't judge me. I'm just trying to, like, do what I can to survive at this point. So I feel like it looks even bigger whenever I turn this way, because there's just so much of it. There's my belly button. It kind of does pop out. It's pretty visible in shirts at this point. Okay, thank you so much for watching. As you can see, my Christmas tree is up already, because I'm just so ready for the end of this pregnancy and for Christmas and Thanksgiving to be here. And so I'm just trying to make myself happy. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Go to my Instagram. I'm going to try to leave the link to, if I can do the direct post, I'll do that. If not, I'll do my Instagram link. But I have announced the name on Instagram, and so thank you so much for watching. Definitely go check that out and hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. I'm still just trying to do as many videos as I possibly can. I don't even know, like, at this point what all I'm going to be able to upload. I'm just doing as much as I possibly can. So thank you for your patience with me. Thank you for your support and your kind words and prayers. Definitely, when I see someone is praying for me, that's so sweet, and it makes me, my heart just melt, and it makes me like want to pray for you too. So I wind up praying for a lot of you who say that you pray for me, so I appreciate that very much. I will see you guys next time.